February 2, 1943, and the USATC Dorchester was crowded to capacity, carrying 902 servicemen, merchant seamen, and civilian workers. Once a 300-passenger Atlantic coastal luxury liner, the 5,649-ton steamship had been converted into an Army transport ship. Now, one of the 3 transport ships in a CG-19 convoy was moving steadily across the North Atlantic's icy waters from Newfoundland toward an American base in Greenland. The SG-19 convoy was escorted by 3 Coast Guard cutters, the Tampa, the Escalada, and the Comanche. Earlier, the Tampa had detected a submarine with its sonar. Hans J. Donaldson, the concerned and cautious captain of the Dorchester, knew he was in dangerous waters even before he got the alarming information. German U-boats, known as wolfpacks, were constantly prowling these vital sea areas, and several ships already had been sunk by their torpedoes. The Dorchester was now only 150 miles from the destination when many soldiers were sleeping deep in the ship's hold. They disregarded the order of the captain because the life jackets were uncomfortable to sleep in. That night, the 4 chaplains performed a comedy act to show and to try to raise the morale of the troops. On February 3rd at 12:55 a.m., a periscope broke the surface of the chilling North Atlantic waters. Through its micro hairs and scents, the officer aboard the German U-boat U-223 spotted the Dorchester. It approached the convoy on the surface, and after identifying and targeting the ship, he gave the order to fire torpedoes. A fan of 3 torpedoes went out. The one that hit the Dorchester was decisive and deadly. It was striking just starboard side around amidship, but far below the waterline. Through the pandemonium and chaos, according to those that were present, 4 chaplains spread out, and they were telling the people, soldiers, how to get out. There they tried to calm the frightened. They tried to even help the wounded. One chaplain took the shoelaces off and tied a life jacket onto the wounded man so he could have a life jacket. They were guiding the people up toward out of the ship. While some of the terrible right seamen were hearing the 4 chaplains offer praise and dying and encouragement for those who were wounded, saying that, says the son of Fox, the survivor, one of the survivors. So witnesses said a wounded soldier couldn't get his life jacket on, so he took his shoelaces off and tied it on for him. Another one is Private Bender. He found himself floating, and the seam of water, smeared water, by dead bodies and even debris. I could hear men crying and pleading and praying. Bender said, I could also hear the chaplains preaching, encouragement. Their voices were the only thing that kept me going. Another petty officer, Williams Mahoney, tried to re-enter the ship. He sprang from Mahoney aboard and pulled off the guardworks. He had forgotten his gloves. Never mind, said the other chaplain. I have 2 pairs, and he gave the man a pair. The rival then gave the party officer his own gloves. Mahoney remained on the Rabbi Good was not completely carrying 2 pairs of gloves. He realized that no, he decided to give the gloves, already knowing that he may not survive. By this time, most of the men were topside, and the chaplains opened a storage jackets and began distributing the life jackets. It was there that Engineer Grady Clark witnessed an astounding sight. When they were out of life jackets in the storage area, the chaplains removed their own life jackets and gave them in form of just 4 frightened men that didn't have life jackets. It was the fairest thing I have seen on hope and see this sign of heaven, said a lad, a witness. Another survivor who came, he witnessed a great act of self-sacrifice. Lad's response is understandable. The unselfish action of the four chaplains constitutes one of the purest spiritual and ethical acts a person can do, can make. By giving their life jackets, the rabbi didn't ask if he were a Jew, neither did Father Waltich ask if he was a Catholic, nor did the Reverend Fortas ask if he was a Protestant. They just gave the life jackets to the next man in line. As they swung away from the ship, said another survivor, the flares and the lights were supplying everything. The bow came up high, and the Dorchester slid under the water. The last thing I saw, he says, the survivor, the chaplains were praying for safety and praying for the men. They had done everything they could. I did not see them again. They did not rise without life jackets. They could not survive. As the ship went down, survivors in nearby ships and posts were awestruck. They could see the four chaplains, arms linked, hand embraced against the slanting deck of the ship as it was going under. The courageous quartet, these voices, they could be heard, encouraging the men and giving them hope.
Those who have served and those currently serving in the uniformed services of the United States are ever mindful of the sweetness of enduring peace that has always been tainted by the bitterness of personal sacrifice. We are compelled to never forget that while we enjoy our daily pleasures, there are others who have endured and may still be enduring the agonies of pain, deprivation, and imprisonment. We pause now to recognize our POWs and MIAs. I call your attention to the small table which is right in front of me, which occupies a place of dignity and honor. It is set for one, symbolizing the fact that members of our armed services are missing from our ranks. They are referred to as POW MIAs. We call them comrades. They are unable to be with their loved ones and families, so we join to pay humble tribute to them and to bear witness to their continued absence. The table is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner, alone against his or her suppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single rose in the base signifies the blood that they may have shed and sacrificed to ensure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. And the rose also reminds us of the family and friends of our missing comrades who keep the faith while awaiting their return. The red ribbon on the base represents the red ribbons worn on the lapels of the thousands who demand with unyielding determination a proper account of our comrades who are not among us. A slice of lemon is on the plate, reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless fallen tears of family members as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us at this time. The chair is empty. They are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors, to open arms of a grateful nation. The American flag reminds us that many of them may never return and have paid the supreme sacrifice to ensure our freedom. So let us pray to our Supreme Commander that all our comrades will be back with us soon within our ranks. And let us remember and never forget their sacrifice. May God forever watch over them and protect them and their families. George L. Fox.
George L. Fox was born March 15, 1900 in Lewiston, Pennsylvania. When he was just 17, he left school and with strong determination convinced the military authorities he was 18 and joined the ambulance corps. The United States had already entered World War I. In the ambulance corps, he embarked from Texas to New Jersey and boarded the U.S. Huron en route to France. As a medical corps assistant, he was highly decorated for bravery and was awarded the Silver Star, Purple Heart, and the French Croix de Guerre. Upon his discharge, he completed high school and went to work for the Guaranteed Trust Company. In 1923, he was married and entered Moody Institute in Illinois and became an itinerant Methodist preacher. After several successful years, he entered Illinois Wesleyan University in Bloomington in 1929 and graduated with an A.B. degree in 1931. Then he entered Boston University School of Theology. George was ordained a Methodist minister on June 10, 1934, and graduated with an STB degree. He was appointed pastor in Waits River, Vermont. In 1936, he accepted a pastorate in Union Village, Vermont. His next calling was in Gilman, Vermont, where he joined the Walter G. Moore American Legion Post 41. He was later appointed state chaplain and historian for the Legion. Then, during World War II, George decided to join the Army Chaplain Service, and on active duty August 8, 1942, his son Wyatt also enlisted in the Marine Corps. George was assigned to the chaplain school at Harvard, and as Army chaplain, George L. Fox was reported to the 411th Coast Artillery Battalion at Camp Davis. He was 42 when he was reunited with Chaplains Good, Poling, and Washington at Camp Miles Standish in Taunton, Massachusetts, and their fateful trip on the USAT Dorchester.
Rabbi Alexander D. Good. Alexander D. Good was born in Brooklyn, New York on May 10, 1911. His father was a rabbi, and his mother, Faye, had two other sons, Joseph and Moses, and a daughter, Agatha. Alex received medals at Eastern High School, Washington, D.C. for tennis, swimming, and track. He led his class in scholarship, too. He planned to follow in his father's footsteps to become a rabbi, but that did not keep him from having a good time laughing and shouting, hail fellow well-met boyhood, with all his Protestant and Catholic boys in his neighborhood. He graduated from Eastern in 1929. He entered the University of Cincinnati and graduated in 1934 with an A.B. degree, and then on to Hebrew Union School and a B.S. degree in 1937. He later received his Ph.D. from Johns Hopkins University in 1940. Alex married his sweetheart from his childhood, Teresa Flax, daughter of Nathan and Rose Flax. Teresa was a niece of singer and motion picture star Al Jolson. They were married on October 7, 1935. His first assignment as an ordained rabbi was at the synagogue in Marion, Indiana in 1936. On July 16, 1937, he was transferred to the Beth Israel Synagogue in York, Pennsylvania, until mid-1942. Alex and Teresa had a daughter, Rosalie, who was born in 1939. Rabbi Good applied to become a chaplain with the U.S. Navy January 1941, but he was not accepted at that time. Right after Pearl Harbor, he tried again, this time with the Army, and received an appointment on July 21, 1942. Captain Good went on active duty on August 9, 1942, and he was selected for the chaplain school at Harvard. He had courses in map reading, first aid, law, and chemical warfare. Chaplain Good was then assigned to the 33rd Air Base Squadron in Goldsboro, North Carolina. In October 1942, he was transferred to Camp Miles, Standish, in Taunton, Massachusetts, and Alex was reunited with Chaplains Fox, Poling, and Washington, who were classmates at Harvard. It was January 1943 when he boarded the USAT Dorchester and lost an embarkation to Greenland. Chaplain Good was killed in action on February 3, 1943, in the icy waters of the North Atlantic when the Dorchester was sunk by the German U-boat.
Father John P. Washington. John P. Washington was born in Newark, New Jersey on July the 18th, 1908. His parents were Frank and Mary. In addition, they had daughters Mary and Anna, and sons Thomas, Francis, Neil, and Edmund. In 1914, John was enrolled in St. Rose in Lima Catholic Elementary School. In those days, times were rough for immigrant family, and John helped out. He took a newspaper route to help his mother with extra money. John was active in sports and also began piano lessons. He loved music and sang in a church choir. When he entered 7th grade, he felt strongly about becoming a priest. During the previous year, he became an altar boy, and his priestly destiny was in process. John entered Seton Hall in South Orange, New Jersey, to complete his high school and college courses in preparation for the priesthood. He graduated in 1931 with an A.B. degree. He entered Immaculate Conception Seminary in Darlington, New Jersey, and received his minor orders on May 26, 1933. John excelled in cemetery and was a subdeacon at all solemn masses, and later became a deacon on December 25, 1934. John was elected prefect of his class and was ordained a priest on June 15, 1935. John Washington's first parish was December 7, 1941. He received his appointment as chaplain of the United States Army. Father Washington was active duty May 9, 1942. He was named Chief of the Chaplains Reserve Pool in Fort Benjamin, Harrison, Indiana. In June 1942, he was assigned to the 76th Infantry Division in Fort George Meade, Maryland. In November 1940, he reported to Camp Miles Standish in Taunton, Massachusetts, and met Chaplains Fox, Good, and Poling at Chaplain School at Harvard. Father Washington boarded the USAT Dorchester at the embarkation camp at Boston Harbor in January 1943 en route to Greenland. Chaplain Washington was killed in action on February 3, 1943, when the Dorchester was sunk by a German U-boat.
Mark V. Poland. He was born August 7, 1910 in Columbus, Ohio. He was the son of Susie Jane Vandersall of East Liberty, Ohio, and Dr. Daniel A. Poland of Portland, Oregon. Clark's siblings were Daniel, Mary, Elizabeth. Clark attended Whitney Public School in Auberdale, Massachusetts, where his teachers remember him for his maturity and a delicate side to his nature. The Auberdale days ended when his mother died in 1918. She was buried in Uptown, Uniontown, Ohio. Clark's father was a minister and in 1936 was rebaptized as a Baptist minister. Clark attended Oakland, a Quaker high school in New York, and was a good student and reportedly an excellent football halfback. Clark was a council member and president of his student union. In 1929, he enrolled in Hope College in Holland, Michigan, and spent the last 2 years of his college in Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey, graduating in 1933 with an AV degree. Clark entered Yale University Divinity School in New Haven, Connecticut, and graduated with his BD degree in 1936. He was ordained in the Reformed Church of America, and his first assignment was the First Church of Christ, New London, Connecticut. Shortly thereafter, he accepted an assignment as pastor of the First Reformed Church in New York. Clark was married to Lady June of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the next year, Clark Jr., also known as Corky, was born. We're a country now at war with Japan, Germany, Italy. He decided to become a military chaplain. Talking to his father, Dr. Daniel Poland, who was a chaplain in World War I, he was told that the chaplains suffered a high mortality rate in the First World War. Without hesitation, he signed up and was appointed on June 10, 1942, as the chaplain for the 131st Quartermaster Truck Regiment, and reported to Camp Shelby, Gettysburg, Mississippi, on June 25, 1942. Later, he attended the chaplain school at Harvard with chaplains Fox, Goody, and Washington. After his transfer to Camp Nelson in Trenton, Massachusetts, shortly after the Dorchester sunk, February 3, 1943, his wife Betty gave birth to his daughter, Susan Elizabeth, on April 20th. I'll be followed by our second vice commander to talk about citations.
On December 19, 1944, all four chaplains, Lieutenant Fox, Lieutenant Gold, Lieutenant Poland, and Lieutenant Watson, were posthumously awarded the Purple Heart and the Distinguished Service Cross, given to the next of kin by Lieutenant General Barton B. of Somerville, Commanding General of Army Services Forces, in a ceremony at Post Chapel at Fort Myers, Virginia. Citations read as follows: for extraordinary heroism, connection with military operation against the enemy of the United States on the night of the 3rd of February, 1943. A loaded torpedo transport was torpedoed in the North Atlantic and began to sink rapidly. In the resulting confusion and darkness, some of the men found themselves without life jackets, and others became helpless through fear and dread, plunging into the freezing water. These four chaplains heroically, calmly moved above the deck, encouraging the men and assisting them to abandon ship. They remained aboard the ship and went down with it, offering words of encouragement and prayers to the lads. In 1957, the American Legion 39th National Convention passed a resolution asking Congress to award the Medal of Honor. Congress also attempted to confer the Medal of Honor on each of four chaplains. But strategic requirement for the medal requires heroism performed under fire, and bravery and ultimate sacrifice of these men did not technically qualify. Since these actions took place after the torpedo attack, therefore, members of Congress decided to authorize a special medal of honor. This award for the 4 chaplains medal was declaration approved by the unanimous act of Congress on July 14, 1960, Public Law 86, 656-74, Statute 521. Citations reads as follows. Being enabled by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled, the President is authorized to award posthumously appropriate medals and certificates to Chaplain George L. Fox of German, Vermont, Chaplain Alexander D. Good of Washington, D.C., Chaplain Carl V. Colin of St. Nick, New York, and Chaplain John P. Washington of Arlington, New Jersey. In recognition of the extraordinary heroism displayed by them when they sacrificed their lives in sinking of the troop transport Dorchester in the North Atlantic in 1943, by giving up their preservers to the other men aboard such transport. The medal of the certificates authorized by this act should be such from design and should be prescribed by the President and should be awarded to such representatives of the aforementioned chaplains as the President may designate. On January 18, 1961, 4 chaplain medals were presented posthumously to the next of kin of each of the 4 chaplains by President Eisenhower at Fort Myers. The United States Government Postal Service issued a commemorative stamp recognizing 4 chaplains in 1948. This stamp was the first, highly unusual because there are 4 men on one stamp. The U.S. stamp were not issued in honor of someone other than one face of the President of the United States. That would be years after their presidency. And an honor, that's an honor indeed. Thanks so much.
This evening, we would also like to recognize 5 City of Deltona residents, local wartime veterans, killed in action, who, like the 4 chaplains and the 668 other service personnel on that night, gave the ultimate sacrifice. Those Deltona fallen warriors are Specialist Dennis James Jr., killed in action August 31st, 2011 in Wardak, Afghanistan. Master Sergeant Tara R. Brown, killed in action April 27th, 2011 in Kabul, Afghanistan. Specialist Nicholas K. Rogers, killed in action October 22nd, 2006 in Baghdad, Iraq. Corporal Angelo J. Vaccaro, killed in action October 5th, 2006 in Korangal, Afghanistan. And Sergeant David G. Ledgerwood, killed in action April 29th, 1969 in Vietnam.
We continue to take stock of the present, reflect on the past, and renew our commitment to the future of America. as in the past, there are problems that must be solved and changed that must be met. We can tackle them with our full strength and creativity only because we are free to work them out in our own way. We owe this freedom of choice and action to God and to those men and women in uniform who have served their countries and its interests in time of need. In particular, we are forever indebted to those who have given their lives that we might be free. I don't have to tell you how fragile this precious gift of freedom is. Every time we hear, watch, or read the news, we are reminded that liberty is a rare commodity in this world. We honor those brave Americans who died in the service of their country. I think an ancient scholar put it well when he wrote, "Let us now praise famous men. All these were honored in their generation and were in the glory of their time. Their bodies are buried in peace, but their names liveth forevermore." As we give tribute to their sacrifice, let us renew our resolve to remain strong enough to deter aggression, wise enough to preserve and protect our freedom, and thoughtful enough to promote lasting peace throughout the world. Quote by Ronald Reagan. How great is our God, and who calls us into relationship with Him and service to one another. In memoriam to those who have offered their lives in the service for God and country and are now enrolled in the great and eternal Spirit Army, whose steps cause no sound.
Well, after hearing all that's been said, I don't really know that there's a whole lot more for me to say. But since I've been given this opportunity, I'd like to just share some thoughts and then leave you with a challenge. As we've listened to the story of what transpired on February 3rd, 1943, and as we've listened to the eyewitness reports of the sacrifices these men have made, I think I finally have an answer to the question, what does a hero look like? Have you ever asked yourself that question? One little guy was asked to define a hero, and here was his answer. Well, he's someone like Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man all put together. Hey, I guess that defines a hero for the little guy. From our history books, we're reminded of the words of Nathan Hale as he swung from the British gallows as he was captured as an American spy behind enemy lines. Quote, "I only regret that I have one life to give for my country." End of quotes. These self-sacrificing words during our War of Independence set the standard for American heroism. As you look in dictionaries, they all have different ideas, definitions of what a hero is. One dictionary said a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, and definitely the four chaplains fit that definition. Another dictionary said one who in the face of danger confronts whatever's thrown at them through feats of courage. The chaplains fit that bill. Through inner strength. My, did they have that. And then it said through creativity, ingenuity, and I'm thinking about that, and then I think about Rabbi Good, who on the spot says, "Hey, I have another set of gloves here, take mine." That's creativity, right on the spot. Another dictionary said one who takes action to help others at a considerable risk to themselves. And as we think about what those 4 chaplains did on the deck of the Dorchester, you just got to realize that they were at a considerable risk to themselves. But then the last definition says, one who lays down his life for another. They fulfilled that, didn't they? You know, in fact, the Bible speaks very clearly about that definition. No one has greater love than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. But you know, you have to read that saying in context of the verse before it and the verse after it. Listen to this. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, that he lay down his life for his friend. You are my friend if you do what I've commanded. As you consider what these 4 chaplains did and you think of this passage of Scripture, you've got to come away with the conclusion that they indeed were friends of God. They fulfilled the command of love by paying the ultimate sacrifice. And when you think of the definitions of heroes that we just read, equally you have to come away with the conclusion that these 4 friends of God were heroes. Father Joseph A. Machini, he's pastor of St. Stephen's Chaplain of Council 6928, and who maintains a large archive of the 4 chaplains at his church, which is just to say he knows a lot about them, made this statement. Sometimes we take our heroes and we put them on a pedestal. They wouldn't want that. The 4 chaplains were just regular guys who did an extraordinary thing. A hero is a person who at some point makes a decision that what they want and their own personal comfort aren't the most important thing in life.
I want to say thank you for all those folks that came out this evening to our 4 chaplains memorial ceremony and service. This is a very important program that we do every year, and really the purpose of the program is to remember the sacrifice of these 4 chaplains who gave their lives so that men could be saved. The AT Dorchester, 902 people aboard when it was hit by a German torpedo and sunk in the North Atlantic in the icy waters there. Only 230 survived. We remember those 4 men of different faiths who had a very true love of God and for their fellow man. And that love for God bound them together, and the love for their fellow man presented them with a huge opportunity to serve those people that were on board that ship. So tonight we have recognized those 4 chaplains. We have honored them again, and we will continue to do so in the years to come. It's so important that our young people hear these kind of stories about our veterans and learn the truth about the fact that freedom is not free. It's paid for. And I like to say there's 2 kinds of freedom. There's the freedom that we have, the liberty that we have in knowing God as our personal Savior. But there's another freedom that we have, and that freedom can only be given to us by our men and women who serve this country, that put their life on the line every single opportunity that they have, and those, some of them, give their lives that we can stay free here in this country. So that's what this tonight was about, the 4 chaplains memorial ceremony and service. We hope next year you'll be here. Thank you.